Good.
We are live, ladies and gentlemen, with 3D Politics, more exciting coverage of all things local, national, and state. Off on assignment, but we do have D'Ambroso and Van in the house. I am Tom McKay, your exciting host. David Van with SoonerPolitics.org, and of course, David D'Ambroso. You can catch him on Facebook at Dave D'Ambroso. Anything you want to say to me, say it right here at 3D Politics Live on Facebook. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff. We got a little bit of news that's about the mayor tonight, a little bit of state news, the young Republicans, and some national stuff as well. But I got to say, just real quick, it's still football season, and I'm not going to give you...
Oh, Tom!
I'm not gonna give you any stats this time, but I just got to say, now a lot of people don't know this. Oldham might, but he's not here. I didn't have a very long NFL career. I wasn't in there for long, and I wasn't drafted very quickly, and I didn't really do well in the NFL. But Tom Brady agrees with me. There's just too many darn penalties in the NFL. But now, listen, I have offered, this seems harsh, I'm sure, but back to the mayor. I really am... I've taken a lot of heat from some criticism I've given. I used to say that there's only one thing stupider looking than riding the bus, and that's waiting on the bus. I'm kidding. You ever ridden the bus?
The city bus?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. The city bus. Yeah.
I've lived here 40 years now, never taken a city bus.
Only with our mayor, G.T. Barnum.
But I tell you, they're building these. They look like train platforms, these new bus platforms you've seen around town.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got down in my neck of the woods here. Peoria's narrowed down to 2 lanes, and they just got rid of both shoulders, and those platforms are like 1.5 feet up in the air. So, I mean, somebody swerves out of their lane into yours. You're just bam into a train platform.
So, and this is the new. Is that for the trolley or for the new train?
And so your vehicle's destroyed if you accidentally, wander into that bus loading zone.
This is what I don't understand about the mayor. We've spent a lot of money on a study to improve we're going to shave 24% off of your time when you're riding somewhere, all 10 of you. And so when they shave all this time off the bus system, we spend a lot of money to do these reports, take all these readings and figure out all this stuff. But I just heard on the news today that whatever they're doing today isn't going to really figure into the new trolley system they're doing later. So we did an entire study to fix the bus system, change the entire route, when we're going to scrap it for the trolley system.
The only reason more people didn't use public transit is because we didn't have 160-foot acropolises for them to wait on. That's it. Didn't you know?
I knew I could count on you, Brosa.
Tom, before you get too far away from
off the edge.
No, your friend Brady in the NFL. Yeah. I want you to know that real football just started this weekend. It's in Japan. The Rugby World Cup. That's where the real football players, like real men, do it without helmets and pads, Tom.
Okay, listen, I'll give you some
sports balling.
I will give you some credit on your rugby, because one of the penalties we could get rid of is face mask penalties.
That's right.
Rugby don't have face masks.
Yeah, you just rip their teeth out.
Ridiculous.
But anyway, now I've got to rebut something you said last weekend.
Okay,
you just flew right by it. You said, "What is this offensive pass interference? It's impossible."
Yes.
Not a chance, Tom. If you were going after a ball that your quarterback threw way out of there and you got no chance, but I'm your defender and I'm about to intercept it, and you haul off and whack me upside the head before the ball gets there, that's offensive pass interference.
That is not pass interference. That would be unnecessary roughness, which is philosophically the name of the game.
No, because it's in the whole play. While the ball's in the air, neither side's supposed to be whacking each other.
Oh, please. The ball's in the air for the offense. The defense jumps.
No, I'm sorry. The ball's up in the air, Tom. It's anybody's ball. Whoever comes down with it has it.
Just know I tried to get off this football.
Okay, well,
and we've got viewers already wondering when we're going to cover the Hasbro International Shoots and Ladder Tournament going on this weekend. So Guys, you gotta hurry up.
Anyway, well,
We're not gonna have time for Monopoly.
I'm still upset about it.
You
Okay.
did a hit and run last week,
Yeah, I
and I'm
did.
calling on
You
you.
bet.
All right, so now we're back to buses. What do we say?
I just don't know why there's not. I think that the bus system, much like the public school system, is antiquated. I just don't think that public bus systems that operate on some automated, robotic, analog schedule even is what we do anymore. Uber and Lyft have clearly done it, and they're like, wow, our new bus. Bynum's like, oh boy, we're also working on an app. Oh, an app. Wow, an app? Yeah, of course an app, like Lyft and the other one that has a name. Yeah, that one.
Well, I came down here as a college student, and I was right away observing something about the culture of Oklahoma. Tulsa particularly was laid out very much in a West Coast California style, where it was, you don't bike ride anywhere, there's no sidewalks anywhere, there's no back alleys behind the house anywhere. And we were very much that Western culture of, we're an automobile town.
Yes.
But yet, Tulsa, in some ways, felt like an eastern city in a western state in our business climate downtown. In the downtown economics, it was mostly the oil economy there and stuff like that. But it seems like in recent administrations, they're trying to turn Tulsa more into an eastern city model with the sidewalks that they're now putting in. Now, anytime they redo an arterial street, you got to do a sidewalk on one side.
With the incessant bike riding.
Oh, God, yeah. The bike riding issue.
Well, again, I mean, the key thing that you're pointing out, I think, is that they keep trying to, quote unquote, turn it into anything. That instead of looking at what it is and what we have that are its strengths and capitalizing on those, we're like, well, wouldn't it be nice if we were like Austin? Or wouldn't it be like if we were like somebody else?
Well, yeah, but I'm going to put a plug in here for we needed to have pedestrian sidewalks on arterial streets. Because without it, people were either walking through people's lawns and there's no barrier, there's no place to say what's city right away and what's walking on your lawn, or they were walking along the curb, and usually when it's snowing out or raining, and that, I mean, it's dangerous. And so I think it made sense to slowly evolve into having at least the sidewalks. So that part I'm going to give my amen to the city planners.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, the bus thing, I'm sorry, but that was a thing to do back in the 70s.
In the 40s. Back in the 40s.
No, just be you.
No.
Just do you, Tulsa.
Yeah. Now, get this.
You don't have to be like anyone
the
else.
most used area of the bus is along Peoria, all the way from North Tulsa down to South Tulsa. But the funny thing is, back in the 60s, we had a bus system, but it wasn't the city. It was called the Friendly Bus Company. And
Were they?
yes, and it was privatized and everything, but it just ran certain areas, and people felt like, wow, our part of town's underserved, this part. So finally the city decided to get into it, and what happened? Friendly Bus Company got run out of business because
I thought you were about to say that everything got a lot better.
No, we lost a tax-paying business, an employer, the Friendly Bus Company, but we got citywide bus, right? Those routes back in the 70s and 80s went all over.
We did something.
Now
we had to do something. Anything.
Yeah, but they have depleted.
Yeah.
Down to the little bit that's still being used is mostly the Peoria corridor. And then along 71st, it goes out there from Peoria to Woodland Hills Mall, but the mall's dying.
See, I don't understand why we dropped money on a study that improved the bus routes. We're buying new bus stuff, and all that's going to go by the wayside for the new trolley system later. It's the same thing he does on the streets. He bargains back, and he does the street package. Then there's a whole conglomerate of street stuff, and he's going after the
Your
street.
hammer, every problem is a nail.
But our state is doing the same thing, and you got to watch who's making the money off of this, because somebody's making money off this. You can bet on it. Somebody's building all those pseudo train platforms. Somebody's going to be selling the new buses, And our state legislature is doing the same thing. They're back to talking about choo-choo train from Tulsa to Oklahoma City every
It's
day.
like they replay the same card.
Well, I mean, Amtrak was such a stunning and brave success.
No, you did
why
that.
not have one here?
Okay, let's talk about Amtrak, because the best indicator of what things will be like going forward are what things have happened.
You're
here in the
never
past.
going to be able to sell that to politicians or bureaucrats.
But the problem is, an Amtrak train ticket, you got one shot a day to get to Dallas on the Amtrak if you're in South Central Oklahoma City. You can get on there, go. But that bus ticket costs you a minimum of $60. Do you know how much the state pays? 30 of it. That's, yeah. The farmer out there in Guyman
it should pay 100%, David.
is subsidizing that person's ticket to take Amtrak. Now, that's at $60 or up. You could take any one of 12 bus trips a day from Greyhound or some of the others to Dallas for half that. Less than $30 to take the Amtrak. To take the Greyhound. So why do people want to do the train at a subsidized fee? They don't want to travel with the riffraff, Tom. That's what it is.
When you're
I want to be on the train.
Yeah, and so yeah, I think it's a novelty. I think they want a trolley because of the charm until it gets old.
Government
right.
does two main things, maybe more, but two things it does really well are waste money and make arbitrary rules. So those are the abilities of government oftentimes, and every problem looks like an eel. Let me spend some money.
I'm still waiting for those sailboats in Zinc Lake, because when Jim Inhofe got that third penny sales tax capital improvement, they showed us pictures of Zinc Lake with sailboats in it. I'm sorry, there are no sailboats.
I've seen the pictures.
Well, you didn't look at the fine print. That wasn't to scale, and it says this is an illustration for modeling purposes only.
But
you could have sailboats.
in Vision 2, where they're going to put low water dams down there by the Jinx Bridge, what they put in there? Sailboats.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. You done that.
You and I have lived through the rise and the fall of the third penny sales tax. Once they crashed through the Brown ordinance during the 2025 thing, that's all old history now.
Yeah. So
one of the other things that the mayor is doing recently, he was trying to promote the 918, and I gotta say, I think the mayor should be ashamed.
Are we going to shame the mayor? Yeah, let's do it.
We need to start calling him GT Barnum. Because he's running a circus. He's a clown.
GT Barnum.
Just call him Barnum.
So here's the deal. As a newly appointed reverend of the 3D Politics Church of 3D Politics,
2D today, yes.
Here's the deal. You should not be a role model for the children to suggest to go get a tattoo. Actually, tattooing is one of the ways you can become HIV positive. And you can't become HIV positive by swimming in rainwater.
Are you HIV positive about that, Tom?
I'm HIV 100% sure. So the point is, getting a tattoo is not something that an elected official should be suggesting to the children. A role model of the city shouldn't be suggesting to the children to get a tattoo. It's just bad form.
And I don't ever want to hear or see GT Bynum riding a lime scooter without a helmet on.
Well, I gotta play devil's advocate here, Tom.
Shame.
Isn't it true that you're just an angry old man yelling at the sky about this?
Me? Yes.
Tattoos are just the new norm.
Well, yeah, that's right. Plus, the other thing is, can you be genuine and really get one? From what I hear, it washes out.
You need a tattoo because now everyone has one, and if you're the real rebel, you don't have one. Because not having a tattoo is the new having a tattoo, since 97% of the population has a tattoo.
You know, I got to say something. The other night, this a few weeks ago, I missed the Republican Executive Committee meeting because my wife was stalled out in North Tulsa with a flat tire.
No.
I had to...
Should have ridden the bus, maybe.
She was picking up my daughter from the airport, and there they were, stranded in North Tulsa because... we've got detours. You can't get out of the airport without going through South Sheridan. So the next day, I go to get some tires. I go out there to Tulsa Hills and Discount Tires. They're hot as could be out there. And 5 of their employees are wearing long sleeve black shirts, long pants. And the rest, several others just wearing shorts, just the minimum.
This is going.
Hot as can be. And I step out there by the garage, and the guy's talking to me. I said, why are they wearing long sleeves? And they said, well, it's for protection. I said, then why aren't you protecting yourself? He says, okay, I'll tell you the real reason. He says, we have a policy. You can't have any exposed tattoos working here. They're miserable. To keep their job, they've got to cook in the heat now because they decided they had to get that tattoo. And they weren't thinking about their
Why do you think
prospects.
I'm always wearing this blazer? You can't see my sleeves.
Well,
Unprofessional.
I just figure that's why you're self-employed.
I had no idea.
Face
It was
tattoos.
street cred. I didn't know it.
One day, people will look at me as odd because I'm not wearing a tattoo.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no piercings.
I'm actually a white guy wearing permanent Trudeau face.
There you
so,
go.
Yeah.
So, what about this young Republicans meeting and all the hubbub?
What about it?
He was there.
Nothing really happened.
Come on, don't say that.
You tried to get my boys to
I
go.
just pictured.
Oh gosh! Oh, I hope Al Gerhardt isn't watching that.
So what is, first of all, what, for the people like me who are just wondering what the heck's going on around here, tell us about the Young Republicans. What are they?
Well, I didn't know much about the group because they are, it's seemingly a vestigial group.
Wait a minute, but you wanted to take over them.
Had never attended a meeting. I don't know that I'd ever been invited to, despite being very involved in politics for the last 12 years.
Yeah.
The Tulsa chapter doesn't really meet. I don't know when their last meeting was.
You have to ask Rachel Brewer.
Never been invited. I don't think the chair or co-chair was at the national meeting. But the deal was, Al Gerhardt's got some of the story right, and he takes umbrage with my actions, which is his constitutional right to do, and I'll defend it to the death.
Al doesn't care if it's constitutional or not. He's
Yeah, he doesn't run constitutional grounds.
No.
So these Young Republicans, they get together, they meet, and what do?
No, mostly drink,
Yeah,
fight.
There's a social club, and right now
Trying to
you've
get
got
this
maybe less than 5 active local groups, is my understanding.
Yeah, so the idea is, I don't know what the idea is. The idea is that it is a way for young people to get involved with the Republican Party.
And
But I don't see these guys, being someone who's ran a lot of campaigns, knocking on a lot of doors, distributing thousands of pieces of literature, etc.
What did they do
I don't
this
see
weekend?
these young Republicans
Okay.
out there.
now that we know
do
who
this
they are,
So I really don't know.
yeah, I have
But
to
I went
say,
to the meeting, so.
the Republican Party, much like the Democrat Party, has, their young Republicans, anyone under 40. Then they have college Republicans that are organized by college campus. Then there's teen Republicans, which is also organized county level. And so those are just auxiliary groups in their party.
Okay.
Just give you a little sense of it. And the...
Got the Knights of the Republican Party.
yeah. So...
Forgot.
The biannual convention to elect new officers, I believe 2-year terms, came up this particular weekend. Past weekend.
I'm taking notes.
And so they, now John Roberts, who has served as state chair, and I don't think this is his first time. He's been very involved in the YRs for probably at least the last decade. But he's stepping down, and yet they're trying to get people to show up. The rules, like most conventions and that, the counties that are sending delegations supposed to send those at least a week in advance so that you can give all those names of delegates to the candidates so that the candidates can begin campaigning at least 5 days in advance and connect and say, yes, I'm running.
Sense.
Do you have any questions or anything like that? But
we made history, by the way, to interject. We're going to get there. Oklahoma's chapter made history. I don't think this has ever been done before what happened. So continue, David.
So they had, like anything, you don't have a convention until you seat the credential delegates. So you have a credentials reports first thing. and the credentials has to follow the bylaws and stuff, and one of the very vaguely worded terms was this at-large delegation, which is supposed to get 5 votes. Well, depending how you look at it, there could be just one at-large, or some people contend that, well, that just means in an organized county, that county gets 5. And then they said, organized county get an additional 15. So it's like a 4-to-1 ratio. If you're with the organized people, your votes count 4 times.
You know, and my only complaint is just a complaint on preference, right? Mm-hmm. Was that this is very similar to the DNC's superdelegate system that strongly favored Hillary Clinton. Does it not sound like that?
Well, a superdelegate would be to say somebody, because they're an elective office, they're automatically a delegate.
Yeah, so it's analogous to, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, for instance, well, Senator Dom was there. He's a young Republican, but I don't think he got additional delegate votes because he's
No, the idea is that it's heavily weighted. So these chartered clubs get many times the vote representation of the unchartered clubs.
Right, and what they're trying to do, of course, like anything, you want every county to have a young Republicans, right? And so
they could just never meet. It's great to have the name there, so it exists
they said,
out there in the entropy of space, and it never does anything ever. So good.
Prior to that change, only organized clubs could be delegates. So if Tulsa didn't have a chapter, Tulsa couldn't send anybody.
So long story short, the establishment tried to extend this olive branch by making registration a little bit longer, and Al Gerhardt took issue with me for registering within the time constraints that the establishment had allowed through their one and only official online portal.
No, he didn't.
I heard about it last minute.
He didn't actually criticize you for taking opportunity there.
Well, that's what it said in the comment that he tagged me.
No, he criticized, actually, and I talked to him last night about it, was what should have happened with people that registered after that 7 days is supposed to be, they're supposed to be approved either by the executive committee, you know, so they can tell the credentials committee, go ahead and seat them, we've approved them, or in the absence of that, the credentials committee should have a vote on that or present it to the people. Meanwhile, they should be provisional delegates. This is not anything unique to YRs.
Great. So this is just for the current power structure to address and for the already established officers to handle.
Yeah.
And they handled it the way they saw fit.
Yeah.
The end.
John Roberts, who was the chair, he actually made I would say, a dictatorial decision. He admitted he made some pretty serious fundamental errors. One of the things is, and the credentials committee, they should have just made them provisional and have the other credentialed delegates vote to let them in, because it was after the 7 days.
Well, they're so used to just making decisions by fiat, they just did what they were accustomed to.
And this time
it bit them in the tuchus.
This time it bit them. And so
Yikes.
it got so contentious that and they presented the credentials report.
I just have to interject. And afterwards I thanked John Roberts. I don't know him that well, because although I don't agree with all the decisions he made, and we have different perspectives, it seems, on policy, and which faction we supported, it seemed like he supported the leftist faction, the establishment faction. I always support the conservative faction, which is the only reason I go to political events. I'm a very simple man. I exist to promote conservatism and constitutional ideas. That's it. That's the only reason I do anything with politics. And so I attended this convention to advance conservative ideals and to hope to make this club and do something that actually exists to promote conservative ideals. That's it. And so I was late to the game. I'm pretty transparent about that. But John Roberts, according to his own ruling, I signed up and signed up others the week of the convention through the one and only official online portal, supporting the rule set that John created. But I told him afterwards, I said, it seems like you tried to extend an olive branch and suspending the rules to accommodate the opposition, big of you. but you were bludgeoned with it. So, you know, you give someone an inch and take a mile. That happens everywhere. But
we've set the table now.
Sounds like multiple chefs in the soup. There.
Here's what I'm going to tell you what the establishment did, and then D'Ambroso will tell you what his faction did as a result of it.
So here we are this weekend, right?
Because everybody was given a badge and access to the floor and access to vote. Again, no provisional delegates that have to be voted on by the others to be let in because they're late. Okay. So they present it, and the floor votes down the credentials report. Said, no, we are not going to be one group of, 30 who are going to share 5 votes so that we're each 1/6 of a vote. Meanwhile, you might have 5 people from Oklahoma City from that chapter.
They're 10 votes.
And, they actually get 20.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so 5 people get 20.
No person can have more than 2 votes.
That's true. That's true. So they did have that catch-all.
I know you guys wanted to know that.
Right. So John realizing, okay, here's the deal. The bylaws, as best John understood, and not only him, I mean, there were other people. Michael Edwards was another, and Seth Rott, were saying...
He tried to do some of a good thing, but not enough of a good thing. That was the problem with John, ultimately.
Hang on. You'll get your chance here. I'm going to tell you what they did, then you'll talk about what you're doing.
You don't have to tell me. I was there.
Okay. So, they weren't. So, well, some of them were. But anyway, so they realized they didn't handle the credentialing right. So now we got a bunch of people with the right to vote that we haven't even determined that they're credentialed properly because they're too late. Okay? So then John decides, and again, it's not a convention until the credentialed delegates are seated. Until then, it's a mob. You don't believe it? Ask my mentor, John Wright, our county assessor, one of the most trained parliamentarians. So he pulls the plug. He says, you know what? Until we get this fixed, we can't have this convention because we've got bylaws that several of us who've been doing this for years have always interpreted this way, but now we got this faction that says, well, that can't be right. And it is poorly worded. It is. It's vague. So he just says, you know what, we're going home. And shut out the lights, y'all leave. And so D'Ambroso didn't want to leave. He drove too far. He was excited.
Well, that's a poor way to run a meeting.
Tell him what happened next.
I didn't care about that. I'm accustomed to driving across the state to do political things. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
I don't even want to look at.
Well,
some
of your compadres very much complained. They said we drove a long way.
Yeah, well, and I might feel that way too if I drove from Guyman or something 5 hours away in the Panhandle to have 15 minutes of, it looks like we don't have the votes to win, so party shut down.
You choose to live there too, don't you?
Sure.
Hi, Kitty Bob!
I got to drive from there. That was fun.
I mean, here's the thing. I hope to be fair and reasonable, and, they seem to, the establishment and John Roberts and that crowd, seem to want to make some moves towards accommodation of the conservative faction.
Okay. We set the table. Tell us, you got the exciting part. I want
wasn't enough. Okay. Trust me, I'll summarize and move quickly here. And so, essentially, it was kind of a provision like, you get more representation, but not enough to matter. And so people weren't happy with that, and he did the thing that he felt was most expedient. And so I don't criticize him for it. He found that to be rational.
Then what happened?
So he essentially adjourns the meeting.
Yes.
But there's a parliamentary action that was called for called division. Hey, I don't trust your built-in little seismograph inside your ear to determine how many people said yay versus nay. So let's have a count. And it's a really cool little motion because then you get to know for sure. And some of us like to know for sure. So he didn't honor that. And I understand it was very frustrating. It was very contentious. That's what we're leaving out.
I'm sorry, what didn't he honor? I want to be sure.
There's a call for division, which means let's count the people that said, yay to adjourning versus nay to let's not adjourn. And so that just wasn't done. So on those grounds and some others, I don't really know. I'm not that much of a parliamentarian. It's incredibly boring, like endless exposition. it seems like maybe the convention wasn't really close. So long story short, the conservative faction remained and had its own convention that was live streamed on the Book of Faces and elsewhere, and notes were taken, and that was sent to the National Young Republicans Committee, and they will make a ruling on whether that was correct. And this conservative faction elected its own slate of conservative leaders. The story.
So is it a splinter group now, or is it suggesting that it takes over the group that it was?
Yes, it's possible. It's possible that
Which is possible.
If, I'll explain. If the conservative faction can prove that it has recruited more people than are currently involved in the current charter, perhaps the conservative faction, my faction, will be granted, separate organization. But I don't want to just ignore that 45% of the establishment fellows that were there. I want to find a way to extend an olive branch to them and see what we can agree on. And maybe we can't agree on anything, because I'll say some of these guys running for officers, I'm not going to name them by name right now. I mean, they hate President Trump openly. Personally accosted me for supporting the president at conservative.
No, I think if you're going to say that, you should at least tell us who you tell. Who are you claiming hates Trump?
I'm not going to say. But no, this is, you can check it out. I mean, you can look at it. If you're more interested, you can ask me in private or something. I'm just not going to say the guy's name, because here's the thing: I don't want to give him any credit by saying his name. I just don't want to give him any. I don't want to give him any play here. So I'm not going to say his name.
I'm going to say it's cowardly, man.
Maybe call it whatever you want, whatever announces it.
Too bad Olden's not here.
These are facts, though. So he doesn't support the president. You can probably figure out who this guy is.
Oh.
He runs a candidate's campaign that's running for CD5, the congressional seat against Kendrick Lamar. That is a D- from the NRA.
Are you talking about Bluebaugh?
This person wants to expand
You're talking
Medicare.
about Matt Bluebaugh. You say Matt hates Trump.
Well, he publicly accosted someone for liking Trump. And let's see here. He just wants to expand taxes. He worked for the opposition to our current great governor, Stitt. And by extension, he wrote a letter to the United States Senate begging them not to eliminate Obamacare. So is this the kind of person you want running a young Republican club? So the grievances were kind of heavy on the conservative side, and the point was brought up, perhaps the gentleman would feel more at home in a young Democrat.
Okay, so Matt Bluebaugh, you're saying he was running for party Young Republican state chair?
Yeah, and I want to mention too, by the way.
Was he? I need to know. Was he?
He was.
Okay.
And Gerhardt criticized, and that's fine. I personally like Al. We're on opposite sides of this. It doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
We're adult
Hi,
people.
Al. You're drug into this.
And
now.
we can just, well, yeah, he's tagging me and stuff. And, I'd love to sit down with him. I haven't talked even with Seth Rott and some guys. I called Seth. He didn't call me back. He's on what I call the leftist faction, the establishment faction. And say, hey, let's see if we can work this out. But here's the deal. Al was very upset that I brought people to the group.
You were a Ron Paul supporter, right, in 12?
In 08.
Well, what about 12?
I didn't like Romney.
No, Ron Paul.
Yes, I supported Ron Paul in the primary.
I think so did Seth Rott. That's interesting, yeah.
That is interesting.
Okay, so.
Yeah, well, I don't know. That doesn't have anything to do with policy today, as it turns out, because we disagree on a lot. But I want to say there were people on this leftist establishment group that had brought extra people to the event simply for stacking the vote. And there were people that I spoke to, and we can confirm this, Al. His criticism of me is, you brought people there. Yeah, I brought people there. That's kind of one of the things I do politically.
It's funny.
I bring people to the fore to knock doors for candidates, to support candidates, to vote for issues.
I'm going to tell you, stacking the vote here, because you notice the national media, when a liberal wins, it's the people spoke. But if a conservative wins, well, Trump stacked the vote.
Yeah, well, it goes back even to the Tea Party. They go down a little short rabbit hole. At first, they denied that it was even happening in the town hall meetings, that there's antithetical feeling to Obama's great future vision for America. Then they said they were paid Republican activists. They were paid by the party. And then they just said, okay, well, this is legitimate, but these people are insane. So this is what happened. There are lots of people supporting the establishment that were brought there just for the purposes of voting, and they had never attended a wire event before. I'm going to say that again. They were brought there, and I didn't complain. Because our side was doing it, both sides were doing this. And by the way, it's not against the rules. So Al has taken umbrage here that people are following the rules in a way he doesn't like, and that's his prerogative. He's allowed to do that, and I can simply say I disagree, and if people have a problem with it, maybe they should just change the rules.
Yeah, well, I think John Roberts actually bent the rules for sure.
Yeah, but the establishment allowed for this to happen.
But did not follow through with the proper approval of those who came in. Because here's the thing. If you reward people who aren't following the rules, you're actually punishing people who do follow the rules.
Yes.
You know, so that's very, they just made a very simple mistake, but it was a very costly thing. And you know, when you go to convention, you see all the structure and form, and you think it's silly. Now we find out it's not silly.
So it hangs around the neck, you know, the implosion of the whole convention hangs around the neck of the establishment. They created the conditions.
Tell us what happened in the parking lot.
I literally did. I summarized it probably in about 22 seconds.
Okay.
A conservative convention was held of remaining delegates, and they elected a slate of officers. And the national group, now for the second time, the national wires will decide if they honor that occurrence or not.
Yeah.
Or another convention will be reconvened, which is probable. I mean, a lot of us conservative guys, myself and Nathan Dahm included, think they're just going to have another convention.
I think so. I think because there's problems with both the parking lot one and the one in the auditorium.
Well, nothing's perfect.
Yeah, right. They both have fundamental problems of parliamentary procedure.
And it's a fundamental failure of leadership that no one can come in and unify both sides to say, let's at least have a coalition. Let's have maybe a semblance of a parliamentary government, you know, where we have coalitions. Fine, yeah, maybe you have one issue or two. Maybe you don't agree with me. My contention is I don't think you're a Republican if you disagree with the platform on every single issue. And there were people at this event like that, and I can prove it. They're publicly held positions. So that I find that disingenuous, but if you're a conservative somewhere, yes, let's have a coalition and work together where we can work together and simply choose to disagree where we disagree.
Yeah.
It seems like this might be a symptom of really a good problem overall. I think one of the reasons we have this show is to inform the electorate and get people more involved in politics. And I think perhaps what's been going on with this group is they've got some poorly written bylaws and some poorly written stuff, and it really has never been an issue because they've had so few people involved that really care.
Yes.
So little accuracy worried about that they've just been able to wing it each time.
Yeah.
But each year, more people have showed, and more people have showed, and you bring a level of accuracy that maybe they're not used to. You want to call for a number, and they're really not used to that.
Well,
and I'm just saying, it was kind of a perfect storm. Had they started earlier and had their ducks in a row with their credentialed people, they might have been able to organize with leaders. But they let everything lax to the very last second, and nothing was well written enough to pull it out. And then to call it off when you've got everybody there, that's a cop out and real poor leadership.
Excellent analysis, but I'm going to defend the establishment here. I think they were left with no choice. I think they had to because
if they were left with no choice,
because you know, tactically, you know, we wouldn't let them move on. And there's nowhere to go.
Well, they built a poor system of running it.
Yes, that is their fault.
Let me say this. Probably about 4 years ago, Scott Chance was the state chair, and he had a very vibrant and thriving group. And we've had a couple people since then that have just kind of disappeared, moved out of state, and left it kind of like, you know, it was basically John Roberts and a couple of his longtime, you know, connections.
Associates.
Associates that like, okay, we got to get a convention. We got to get some new blood in here. And yeah, I think the numbers are down.
Well, he's definitely new blood, right?
Right.
So well, and you get people in the establishment apparently, and Al included, which, you know, I'm going to talk to Al about this, you know, that are complaining that I'm registering people to be members of. And by the way, one of the guys that I brought, actually both of them, one of them had a really extended conversation with Senator Dahm, learned a lot, and has been learning, and has switched parties from Democrat to Republican. This is months ago, based upon my social media account. I not really talked to this person.
Is that one of those people that was being criticized as they actually were Democrats, but they switched over to Republican?
A little bit different. This is a guy who switched over months ago based upon.
But this is one of the good switches, not one of the bad switches.
Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Well, somebody's talking about some bad switches in that they're just coming over to take over.
No, this isn't
our
a person.
party.
This isn't a person who switched for the purposes of this event.
Okay.
But I don't want to get too in the weeds on it.
I do.
Well, fine. I just want to move quickly. I think we've been on this topic already too long.
And I do want to say,
I just want to finish a brief point.
I did talk to a number of people in the wake of this from both sides of it. In fact, last night I talked to our former state party chair and former state auditor, probably our best state auditor, Gary Jones. And he's, we just talked in broad sense, his dealing with running a party and are you going to have a vibrant youth or young voter program?
Right.
And he said where it's typically gone off the rails is when they become more of a social club. Because then the cliques start to form, and then the exclusions start happening, and you aren't part of this clique because you weren't part of this campaign that I was in with, or maybe, you have different priorities. And it needs to be a truly multicultural young Republican state organization where, they might do one thing in Norman that they don't do out in Woodward, and they might do something in Tahlequah that they don't do in Lawton. It's
got to be policy primary.
Yeah,
I think so. And tell me who this group is elected, right? Tell me what positive effect this group has had on moving the needle towards conservatism.
Nice. Yeah.
You know what? The people who do nothing do less. Okay. No, I'm sorry. What standard are you going to say is enough to justify having an organization?
It's not enough.
Something to show.
It's not enough. It's not
something.
Enough. It's a metric.
Anything.
Okay, listen. Take John Roberts, who you had a problem with, and I've had lots of problems with John Roberts. But
It was conciliatory. I talked to him afterwards. I really didn't have a problem with him.
I've had lots of problems with John Roberts, but I've also worked with him to get some major foundational changes made to the party. And that, the thing about John...
He seems like a person that can be reasoned with.
Well,
and I respect him for that.
He's done more...
We disagree.
He's done more for the Republican Party in his last decade with them than you or I have done.
Like what?
But, again, you don't do anything, nobody can criticize you.
What has he done? You can't just say, what's your evidence?
What
has he accomplished?
The fact that you don't know just tells me how little you've been involved.
Okay, well tell me what he's done. I'm just waiting for number one.
He was the executive director from 2013 to 15.
What did he accomplish?
Okay.
It's like Hillary Clinton's a woman in politics. It's not an accomplishment.
But I think you disagree with some of his
When you're executive director, it's not your job to do the accomplishing. You are keeping house.
Facilitated.
Yeah,
He's
you're running the day in, day out stuff. Your chairman is the one who sets the agenda.
I can believe that.
All right, let's tune in our viewers. You're in the middle of the deep weeds of the Young Republicans convention here last week.
Inside politics.
Inside politics.
Well, I had to wrap on one thing very briefly. We're getting criticism, and I mean we, the conservative group, for bringing in new blood. And what I wanted to say, the two guys that I brought from Tulsa area with me loved it. And one of them even made a Facebook post. I'm really excited to get involved with politics, and now I will be involved with Republican politics.
That's a good thing.
Mission accomplished. It is not a bad thing to bring in.
Let me tell you, the next YR State Convention will be one of the biggest, most attended, most supported that we've seen in the last decade. Bar none. That's a good thing.
And maybe we give John Roberts some credit for that.
Yeah, and I'm just, right. But now Luke Harshaw was one who ended up being elected by the Rump Convention on the parking lot. I've known Luke. I think I have more confidence in Luke than probably just about anybody who attended that. And I reached out to him, and he's gonna, do it. He didn't want to make a public statement. I'm not gonna tell you what he said, but I think he's got a good.
I think that's cowardly, David.
No, I think it's called good journalism. When
2
people
out
talk
of the 3 Davids, ladies and gentlemen.
Just a callback.
I'm Tony K, your amazing host, with 2 out of the 3 Davids, David D'Ambroso, David Van, and David Oldham is on the road this evening. We have been knee-deep and maybe waist-deep into the weeds of this young Republican things. We're going to move on before it all bursts into flames. And I do want to hear a little bit about what you had to say about the tribal compact, David Van. What's the news?
Oh, man. Well, you know, back in 1990, the Indians tribes wanted to have bingo as a way to raise money. And you know what? I grew up in the Catholic Church that we would do bingo once a month, you know, to help support the Catholic school and that. What charities don't have a bingo once in a while? The Legion would have a bingo, you know, it just... So it seemed, yeah, that's this fine. Let them have bingo.
It's bingo.
Right, because we generally said gambling's bad. We don't want to do any gambling, right? But we're going to let them, but they're the only ones. Well, most of us didn't pay attention to that, and then 10 years later, well, they wanted the slot machines and the dice and the craps and all this. And so
you're gonna have bingo, do bingo.
Yeah, so then they went on to that. And, you know, now all of a sudden we find out not only are they doing well at that, but now they're into fine dining, concerts, special events, all kinds of stuff going on. And the people who had been making a business in that, now all of a sudden are getting run out of business because they're being undercut by the tribes. The tribes have something that they can offer as part of the package for a weekend, you know, that we can't. And they can do these things as loss leaders. So some people are saying, you know what, I've got a good restaurant here, or I've got, you know, a great entertainment spot, but if I could put in slot machines and crap machines, you know, then I could compete with them and be fair.
Well, it's great that the Constitution applies to all of us equally, right?
Yeah, in Tulsa, we have 3 major casino resorts. And they are taking in tons of money. Then we find out...
And it fixed education, though. And they were right years ago. They said, we're going to allow these tribes to have gambling. It's going to solve our funding problem with education.
No.
And now we don't have any funding problems.
And then I find out, because I work in mental health, you know, advocacy... Part of the Department of Mental Health's budget now they have to use for dealing with gambling addictions because it's an addiction. Okay, money that we could have spent on other serious mental illness that people didn't have any choice in, like schizophrenia, or they went to war and now they got PTSD, but now we got all these problems. So let me move back where I was talking about. So now we got this compact that's expired, and the tribe said, oh, no. It's a perpetual contract now. And we get a monopoly. Well, here's my problem.
It's a convenient interpretation.
Here's my problem. Not only does our Bill of Rights, the Fifth Amendment, you know, come into play, but more importantly, the 14th Amendment, what's called the Equal Protection Clause, which means whatever rights the government protects for me, they got to protect your rights in that
like
too.
Having anchor babies and abortions.
Right. And then you shall not be have those rights taken away except by due process of law. Well, if you're running a casino and you get arrested, but I'm running a casino and I'm paying off the state government and they're going to let me, but they'll arrest you. How is that equal protection under the law?
Well, negative externalities.
This is my problem with it, and I'm saying, Governor Stitt, please do not drag us into a federal court battle over constitutional rights.
Let me see if he's watching.
So
his cousin is.
JJ was.
Tell him.
Yeah. So we've got an issue here, and now what's happening?
Doesn't a treaty come into play somewhere?
No.
There's a treaty to suspend the Constitution of the United States of America.
No. Well,
powerful treaty.
Actually, they called it a compact, but I can't, in a treaty with you, give you his rights and say, I'll make sure he doesn't get them, and you do. You pay me, and I'll sell him out.
Unless you can.
So the tribes, though, are a sovereign nation.
Well, then they should go set up camp in their sovereign nation. But that's a lie because they're not sovereign.
Well, okay then.
They're not sovereign.
This goes back to negative externalities and other economic concepts that politicians don't understand.
You know, it's that term sovereign is just to make you feel good. I'm
It
sorry.
does. It makes me feel real good.
And now you see this media blitz they're going on now. Do you see that? Oh, the tribes, you know, the tribes have done this and the tribes have done this. And then they say, when the tribes in Oklahoma are doing well, then Oklahoma's doing well. You know, in other words, this is trickle down. Take care of the tribes, and then we'll make sure that you're doing okay. All right? I want to be doing better than okay. So thank you, Matt Pinnell. So my thing is, it's like this trickle down is saying, well, if the slave masters had a good meal and dessert, we might get an extra helping of gruel. Slaves, you know? We are not the slaves here. Nobody's the slaves here. We have the same rights that everybody else has. And we should have the same economic opportunities. We should have the same equal protection under the law. That's my problem.
So
with
probably,
this
yeah, okay, so probably, and too bad Oldham's not here because he would say everybody should be able to gamble.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Or no one, right?
Well, everybody should have an opportunity to get involved in a business.
Right.
Like this.
We shouldn't be
And-
protecting the Indian tribes just because.
Right. And that's
Yeah,
a real
yeah.
problem I have with it.
Obviously, there's a lack of equal protection under the law here, which is
Yeah.
the cons. I mean,
Now,
clearly.
you're going to get a lot of people that are, you might call your old, blue law supporters of, well, gambling's wrong.
Right.
And, let those people do it, but our people shouldn't do it because it's wrong, which is, sounds a little bit prejudice here, a little bit bigoted, kind of like in The Godfather, he says, okay, if we're going to sell drugs, sell it, in the black part of town, you know? And,
Thanks a lot for my gambling addiction, native tribes.
I think we've got a fundamental problem with this, and I don't see there's any way that we can continue on any of these compacts if it means taking away our equal protection for every citizen.
Amen.
So the way that the tribal compact is written, it doesn't continue to move in perpetuity, or is that arguable?
No, I think the state can cancel it anytime they want. If they want it to continue on, it can, because the tribes love it. It's a good thing. Let's just keep going.
Yeah.
But no, we need to say, hey, two Democratic governors, David Walters and Brad Henry, are the ones that sold us out on this. And yes, they got a lot of campaign money from the tribes. In fact, David Walters had to plead down a misdemeanor because of his campaign
I like
violations.
how short the memory of most people are when it comes to politics. We talk about the educational crisis of 2018. Well, and they talked about how Oklahoma is at the bottom of all these rankings for many decades. Well, we've been monolithically a Democrat-controlled state for the vast majority of the history of this state.
Exactly.
And many of these problems were created under Democratic administrations, including this. We're supposed to get this bukus of bucks from native gambling towards education. And it's going to be the panacea. We're never going to have a funding issue again. And this was, 15, 20, 25 years ago in that range. And of course, we have the same funding problems because government's never held accountable for its spending.
Oh, yeah.
So, moving right along, not only did bigwig Tom Brady agree with me this last week, but also Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook have also agreed with me just recently. I had a lot of arguments early on in my Facebook career, and people would say, get off my page, or don't post that on my page, my page, my page. And I kept telling them, it's not your page, it's a public forum. But I was wrong. It's Mark Zuckerberg's page. It's not your page.
Terms of service.
And it's terms of service, ladies and gentlemen. So tell us about the Facebook publishing.
Yeah, so the big thing with Google and Facebook and Twitter is, listen, are you a platform or are you a publisher? Right now they have a hybrid state, which is totally non-lawful. They have to be binary, one or the other. They can't be both and have their cake and eat it too. Because the main distinctions here, as a platform, you're not responsible for anything said or done on your platform. You're simply providing the stage or the platform. for said activity. In this case, it's speech on the internet for YouTube, or Twitter, or Google, or Facebook. If you're a publisher, you're like a newspaper. And so, yeah, you are responsible for saying, you know, go over there and kill this guy. Here's his address.
Or
Okay,
things that are true.
You're responsible for that if your editor writes it. You are, because you're a publisher, because you have the ability, you have editorial control. You can pull that.
Yeah, it goes further than that. When you are a platform, you essentially become like a park that everybody can use. You're providing a community service. You're treated much like a nonprofit. You get all the best treatment, especially in the federal government. But when you're a publisher, and now all of a sudden you're seen as somebody who's competing with everybody else in there, and the government's certainly not going to give you any preferential treatment. Just like any of the TV networks, the print media, anything like that. And so this was important that it happened, and Zuckerberg did it essentially because he could read the writing on the wall.
What did he do?
It was going to be, he said, you know what? We are a media outlet.
He said he owns your page.
He said he's a publisher.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's how he's arguing his suit with Laura Loomer. Maybe Zuckerberg's anti-Semitic because Loomer's Jewish, after all.
So Zuckerberg.
Well, it doesn't matter. So some Nazis are Jewish too. No one cares. But the thing here is that it's very convenient that he's arguing this. So we'll see if he does one of the most powerful quantum state liberal tricks that exists. Having the pie, it's Schrodinger's pie. They have it and they eat it too. And they take both benefits of gazing upon their perfectly crafted pastry and consuming it.
Well, he almost had no other direction to go than to go ahead and, because otherwise he'd be guilty of all sorts of censorship.
Yeah. Now, here's the problem that's going to happen for everybody who's used Facebook, as so are you if you're watching us live.
So the link in the description, we've posted 3 paragraphs of legal mumbo-jumbo that you can post as your status that will protect you from Zuckerberg's terms of service.
No, because when you're a platform...
Just kidding, don't do that.
When you're a platform, as soon as you edit the content of somebody because of their ideology, not because, you know, something that's blatantly illegal or something, but when you edit just because you don't like their point of view, once you do it once, then you are responsible for everything you didn't censure.
So all the Antifa pages that are saying punch a Nazi, and a Nazi is anybody I feel like is a Nazi, and then they end up putting someone in the ER or murdering them because they feel like they're Nazi. And this has happened before. We've reported on this show. The Antifa guys feel like some of these guys are Nazis that are literally other Antifa. And they're putting them in comas because, you know, the mantra on Facebook, on YouTube, on pages that have not been taken down, while peaceful pages that do not advocate violence have been taken down, such as the Proud Boys pages. By the way, some of these Proud Boys are going to prison for defending themselves, and the Antifa members that instigated violent assault are not facing prison terms. I'm going to say that again. For self-defense, the Proud Boys are looking at prison time, and Antifa is not. So Facebook will now be responsible for all the Antifa pages that say, go firebomb an ICE facility. So because they've decided they're a publisher, now they're responsible for all the stuff they've not censored on the platform.
So what's going to happen is your typical user is going to face a lot more scrutiny. I've got one Facebook group that is an advocacy group, but I've got 9,000 members in it right now. I'm the only admin. And once I hit that 4,000 threshold, oh my God, I found out Facebook is very much watching the big groups, particularly. And I got hit in early August with like 10 violation of Facebook standards. And it was just, you know, one of the things I was doing is things people were putting on there, and it was my job to be the gatekeeper. So all of a sudden,
your innocence.
all of a sudden, then I had to switch to post approval. That means every post I had to personally go on the line for it and start doing it. Otherwise, they were going to take us down. You know, and I had to tell people diversify. So look, we got to make a whole bunch of small groups because this one's likely to go away pretty soon, the way Facebook.
My issues with Facebook have been, as many have heard, I just get shadow banned. So some of my posts just don't publish. I see it on my page. It's there. The image uploaded, the meme uploaded, and this mostly Second Amendment stuff I've noticed. And no one else can see it. No one can see it. I can't see it from a different account. I can't. So that's a shadow ban. And 2, they won't take my money. They will not allow me to spend a single dollar on promoting conservative content, my content. And, they use a myriad of means to do this, but the important thing is they won't let me spend money. So my question is, how is this any different than a baker that refuses to bake a gay cake? Mm-hmm. How am I any different? Is that equal representation of law? This baker apparently must participate in the gay wedding, but then if that's true, why isn't Facebook forced to service me and to take my money to promote my conservative content?
And now
how is that constitutional?
Right, but now you're going to see Facebook truly blatantly being in your face about, we don't like your content, we think it's a danger to America.
And by the way, I prefer that. I think it should be that way. Zuckerberg owns his platform, and he can have all liberals on there if he wants. And the baker owns his bakery, and he doesn't have to bake anything for anyone he doesn't want to.
And I think Facebook's going to end up diversifying because they can't put all of their hopes in this one platform and now publishing deal. And Facebook's probably 3 years from now, we won't even recognize it.
Yeah.
Now, Google is about to create Skynet, just kind of segueing into these massive, dangerous monopolies, these these tech corps that all shift hugely left. It's a funny stereotype, right? That Republicans are defending these corporate interests and a bunch of rich white guys that are. I mean, you look at it. Well, on the left, you've got monolithically like white people running the editorial boards, and their left is saying we hate white people. Isn't that interesting? And you've got 8 out of the 10 richest zip codes in the United States that voted for Barack Hussein twice. And you've got every major corporation that gives more money to leftists than they do to conservatives.
Yeah.
Even Wall Street. I mean, that's why Hillary, all of her... But anyway, the thing is, Google has developed the world's first working 53-qubit quantum computer. Now, what does that mean?
I did hear about this, yes.
This quantum computer, what it means is you no longer have any privacy because encryption works upon the basis of, very briefly, getting into some nerd stuff, making very, very, very large prime numbers that a computer takes a long time to decrypt, on processing time, sometimes tens of thousands of years, so it just can't happen. So your information is secret, using these primary numbers, very large numbers. They're only divided by themselves in one, divisible. Okay, so in order to get access, you have to have that number. A quantum computer can solve these problems 1,000,000 times in just a few seconds. Yeah. And so what that means is there's no such thing as encryption. So I was very cautious about Bitcoin because it means that the blockchain is undermined. Now a quantum computer can edit all those letters in future tense. Once these computers scale the way they're supposed to scale, very similar, somewhat similar to Moore's law, which is your transistor count doubles every 18 months. What does that mean? Computing power just goes like this. It's exponential. It doesn't get twice as fast. It gets 10 times faster.
Okay,
well, quantum computing does this logarithmically.
Okay, this is technology. This is advancement. What do you have against advancement?
Oh gosh,
good devil. I'm pulling the damn Rosso on damn Rosso.
He's playing. I've got nothing against it. It's just the implication here. I'm not saying, hey, government step in and do something. I'm saying this is the reality. Mm-hmm. And the reality is that you will have no more privacy because these machines are very good at. So your traditional supercomputer, the world's second most powerful non-quantum supercomputer, is estimated to take up to 20,000 years to solve some of these encryption problems that this Google machine solves in seconds.
Who knows?
And so because of it, it means that even military-grade encryption will be a thing of the past in some years. So the machines will be not just 10 times more powerful, these quantum machines in 2 years, they'll be hundreds of times more powerful.
Okay, so I go up to Pryor to the industrial park there, and I drive by Google all the time. I mean, it's a massive deal. Is this computer you're talking about, is it up there in Pryor?
I don't know where it is, but it is. I mean, if you're near, this technology stuff, they've got to keep it near absolute zero. The particles, they have to be isolated from all radiation and other quantum effects.
Oh yeah, and all those buildings up there are solid concrete, poured solid concrete walls. They are all F5 computer, F5 tornado protected. It's amazing.
So, but the implications are huge. I mean, it means that the Bitcoin blockchain can be undone. They could just totally take over Bitcoin. All of your emails can be read. All of your secret messages, even military encryption, can be undone. And so it's a Pandora's box. I mean, it's something to definitely watch. What should we do about it? I'm not exactly sure.
I bet you the thing's up in Pryor. No, look what your most top secret stuff. Look what the government does. The most top secret bomber they ever created, the B1, or no, what, the B1B, right? Is it or B2? The B2, the stealth.
The one that flies from Missouri to the
Missouri.
Middle East.
They keep it in the
B2.
heartland. It's not on the coast. You know,
It could be.
It could be.
Well, it's funny. So this article actually got pulled from the internet, but everything is forever in digital land. And the Wayback Machine, you can pull up the articles about this quantum 53-qubit machine. And so essentially there are an infinite number of quantum states, so it's a totally different level of computation.
Now, to try to take some of the abject fear out of our audience, all three of them are just running like crazy. Not everybody. I mean, so there's amazing things. We can fly to the moon, and there's laser weapons and nuclear bombs. And so,
well, so this kind of
we're not gonna. Some moron's not gonna be able to go down to Best Buy and get the supercomputer and break the blockchain. You know?
No. And this is just going to be very. This is I was hesitant early on with Bitcoin because of this. I looked at it from the standpoint of nanocomputing. What happens when you just get a traditional computing architecture that's so small that it scales at a much higher rate than our current silicon, which is on a nanometer production basis. So once you get even smaller than that, by an order of magnitude, you can process, away the blockchain security. So this goes beyond that because this could successfully even replicate the neural pathways of the human brain. This is a necessary precursor to AI.
I'm waiting for the next Austin Powers movie to come out where the evil is Google.
Yeah, they dropped their. I think they dropped their old moniker. Don't be evil. It's gone. I mean, they've given up on that. It's no longer their slogan.
A couple more national stories to get out of here. At least one. We were way ahead of the curve on the environmental stuff. Everybody's been talking about the contagion of fatalism this week. The kids taken out of school to go crazy and wacky about it. Any comments on the environmental protests?
Yeah, today I looked at, in fact, a couple hours before we started filming tonight, several major arterial intersections in D.C. shut down all day today.
Yeah.
It took hours and hours because these people, they had planned this. They were chained together and chained to big old trailers, and they had the chains going through pipes where they couldn't even use bolt cutters to get them.
Good visuals because they want to enslave society.
But my biggest concern is good old Mayor de Blasio in New York. They gave every kid the day off so that he could go get involved. Susie and Billy are down there, but chaining themselves to something to shut down things in the name of protecting our society, protecting our lives.
This is a ball of mud that's on fire from the inside, flying through ice-cold space at 66,000 miles an hour.
Yeah,
and we're taking off to school to try to fix it.
This is a terrorist eco-terrorism that's going on right now. They are terrorizing. They're using techniques.
They're scaring the children.
And a lot of the people they're blaming conservatives for that are terrorists are on their side. And this guy that killed all the Muslims in Australia, he's an eco-anarchy. He's an eco-terrorist.
It's a religion. Let's face it. It is. You talk about the fatalism contagion of last week about this. And the problem is with this one, our public schools are the ones indoctrinating.
Shock. Imagine Tom's shock.
Yeah.
Well, and I loved how what we covered last week was all the ancient stuff. 1343, 1524, then all the news media this week with all your top talkers were talking about all your current things. So between our show last week and the current talkers, it's just every 10 years we're all going to die every 10 years.
Can I give a congratulations to some of my friends?
Yeah.
David Cheney, Ben Harris, co-founders of Epic Charter Schools. You were just named by Tulsa World, no less.
What?
The Reader's Top Choice Best Public Charter School in Oklahoma. By the readers of Tulsa World.
Epic Charter School, salute, right?
Boy.
Yeah, so, I'm telling
Congrats,
you, it's some good things going on with our this flanking maneuver we got going on.
Yeah.
Evidently, Epic has now asked for an investigation on Senator Ron Sharp.
Oh, we broke that last week,
got
didn't
that.
we?
Yeah, but they're asking for a criminal investigation into
Beyond the site.
abuse of
But we
government
broke his
resources.
alleged criminal actions,
Yeah.
did we not?
Yeah, we did. So that's going on with them. Still waiting. You've got less than a week right now to switch schools if you want to get out of your failing, old broken down system
Indoctrination mill.
and get into something that's 21st century like Epic
works.
Charter. You can get in before October 1st while they're still taking in more people, and you make what's called the midterm adjustments. And we'll see what kind of enrollment numbers we get coming up.
Excellent.
At the end of the year.
I wanted to mention, because this gets glossed over, and I didn't want our outlet to be guilty of the same thing much of the media is, the violence that's taken place in these ecological demonstrations. Your Antifa bros got together in Portland and started shooting projectiles at an ICE facility.
Oh, that's right.
And you look at, the way the media frames things, and we're, I think we're probably more thoughtful, introspective people as conservatives, and we want to give the other side the benefit of the doubt, and so we tend to not really nearly go after them as viciously as they go after us, but this isn't vicious, these are just facts. We've got to remember that leftism is the ideology of death and destruction, that leftism has put more than 100 million people into an unnaturally early grave over this last 100 years, and it is seen in every branch and aspect of leftism. These eco-terrorists have killed far more people than your most extreme, what they call right-wing guys, these Nazis, which are not, they're socialists, and it's so funny that the left is so successful in framing the argument, we get to hold the bag for socialists. Since when do you and I ever have to apologize for what some socialist does in Australia, or some Trump-hating socialist does to a synagogue?
I've decided for Halloween I'm going to dress up as Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada. I just don't know which version of him to dress as.
Whiteface?
Yes.
You're gonna wear pre-edit, pre-contrast adjustment face. You're all washed out.
It's delicious to watch them in hypocrisy.
Well, don't forget, according to white privilege accounting, one episode of cross-dressing is equal to one episode of blackface.
Yeah.
So that's a wash.
And you do need a quantum computer to make that calculation.
But it's okay for me to gender appropriate as a female or some other newfangled gender, and the left will protect me. But as soon as I dress up as a Hispanic or Asian or whatever else, now all of a sudden they're ready to stone me.
But you've got to remember, gender's only a social construct too. So there's the cake, and now they're eating it too.
Yeah,
you're a sexist, but sexes don't exist.
Yeah, the inconsistency is just glaring.
All right, we're getting ready to get out of here. We got anybody want to touch on this whistleblower story, the big setup for Biden?
I guess we have to.
Yeah, let me just say it's been in the news that Biden was shaking down the Ukrainians, saying, "Look, if you're going to get this aid from the United States, get off my son's back. Don't be investigating all this corruption he's involved in." And evidently it worked. But
Bo Biden, his firm was getting like $166,000 a month from Ukraine.
Yeah, so Trump just calls them back, says, they're not in office anymore, and listen, you want to go after them, please do. And Trump, he said, please investigate if Americans are breaking your laws.
Right.
Investigate.
So now the left has jumped the shark so much that Trump is bad for just doing his job.
Yeah, Trump
doing his job.
Trump was bad for cooperating with Ukrainian law enforcement.
And remember, it was Manafort, really. He was involved with Ukraine in consultation. It wasn't Russia. Isn't that convenient? So you've got, it's a one-to-one comparison. It's the Bidens dealing with Ukraine, just like Manafort. So let's have a Manafort-style investigation.
And so that's essentially, and that's not officially come out yet, but it's the worst-kept secret. That's what it's about, is some staffer said, oh man, I heard Trump on the phone and he's saying, please go investigate.
And that's not even whistleblowing. Whistleblowing is whenever you bring up an illegal
right.
offense.
No, yeah, and today they mentioned there was no quid pro quo in it. It was no, we're going to withhold it unless you investigate or unless you find him guilty or unless you do all this. Just said, please, do your job.
It seemed quite obviously a setup. It looked like Trump knew exactly what he was doing. He said just enough. And then also, instead of him coming out saying, hey, I've got news about Biden, he let it leak.
Oh,
perhaps Trump was playing some 3D
this
politics.
is the cool thing. Now, I said it's been out there, this story about the Bidens and the investigation, but it's only been on the more right-wing media that's been covering it. The cool thing now is because they're all getting worked up at Trump, now all of a sudden, everybody's covering the corruption of the Biden family in Ukraine.
They're turning over every rock.
Yeah. So that's kind of it in a nutshell.
Okay. All right, well, we touch a little bit on state, a little bit on local, and a little bit on national here on 3D Politics. Hopefully next week we'll have Olden back. I'm Tom McKay, your host. I've got David D'Ambroso, David Van fooled you. And don't forget to tune in again next week for 3D Politics.